Hi guys, I'm Joanna, and today I just wanted to make a somewhat detailed yet quick take video on face brushes from a newbie's perspective. So definitely keep watching if that sounds up your alley. Now before I get into that, as a reminder, if you are new here, please hit that subscribe button. You can also find me on Instagram and Twitter. I love interacting on those mediums, so hope to see you there. Okay, when it comes to brushes, I first want to just say my background when it comes to makeup. I've been doing makeup for a long time, since high school, but really I've always done a very natural look, and it's only really been in the last couple of years that I've started incorporating more brushes into my makeup. And obviously YouTube has been a huge influence in this happening, so thanks YouTube. But with that, when I was first getting started with brushes, I really didn't understand what the difference was between like a lower end brush versus a higher end brush. Was it worth the money to spend the extra money on the brush? And what really made a difference in terms of how those products apply to the skin. So today's video, I'm hoping to kind of share what I have now kind of collected in my experience using different face brushes. Today's video is going to be on face brushes, and if you're interested in this, let me know, and I can also make one for eye brushes. But with that out of the way, let's get into the learnings and my experience with brushes. So moving aside from all of the obviously crappy ones, so the really cheap brushes that feel horrible, the bristles are really stiff and uncomfortable and prickly against the skin, or the ferrules fall off, or the bristles fall out on your face when you're applying. I mean, obviously there are really crappy brushes out there, so moving aside from those brushes, you know, what separates a good average brush from one of those really expensive brushes? And when I mean a good average brush, I'm thinking more along the lines of a Real Techniques kind of entry-level price point versus something that's a little bit more expensive, like an IT Cosmetics brush. I personally have not had that much experience with natural fiber brushes, so animal hair brushes, but in my experience using synthetic brushes, I don't have any negative things to say. I've found brushes that work well for everything that I need it to, and so I don't really see the need to get any animal hair brushes, let alone any kind of, you know, ethical issues one might have with that. I wear leather, I eat meat, so I certainly don't have room to be kind of, you know, jumping on people's throats for doing that. However, I just, from a use perspective, I just haven't found the need for anything like that. So in my opinion, synthetic works great, and it's easier to take care of. Okay. Now, when it comes to synthetic, again, what separates the average from the really nice brushes? And I think this is where it's really kind of murky, because honestly, for different uses, for different situations, for different products, you will find that any brush at any range of price point can work just as well as another one. And I think what you do have to look for are the three differences in brushes and how you use them. And so the main thing is the softness of the bristles. So how soft is it against the skin? Is it comfortable to use? Does it prick your skin when you're brushing it against your face? So that's one thing for sure. Second is the density of the bristles. And so here is, you know, how many bristles are there per square centimeter, per square inch. That really impacts how well the brush will pick up and deposit product onto your skin. And the third thing, which I didn't really think of as such an issue, is kind of a combination of the softness and also the density, and that is the flexibility of the bristles. So how much pressure do you have to apply for the bristle to bend and splay out, for example? And that actually makes a huge difference in terms of how well a brush will work for any certain situation. And the thing of it is, in my experience, at any price point, you can get any combination of those three things and find the right one for your face. So I honestly, I'm you know, struggling to see why anyone would need to spend a lot of money on brushes, except for the fact that from a daily use perspective, I use this thing every day, and I want to use something that I'm going to enjoy using every day. And so that, I would say, is probably the biggest distinguisher between your average brush and your more expensive brush. So So that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think about that, but I'm going to share with you some of my brushes that I use every day and compare them along those kind of dimensions that I just mentioned. So first, for the face, I started off with this very classic Real Techniques base set, and this is one of the brushes that comes in that base set. This is the buffer brush. Now this brush, I hate using liquid foundation with brushes, so I never use this as a liquid buffing brush. Instead, it really looks like a kabuki brush in terms of how it's shaped and how dense it is, so I actually found this to be useful as a kind of all-over powder brush, and also for me personally, just how I apply blush, I actually found it to be useful as just kind of a targeted apple of the cheek kind of pat. When talking about the face, I have since moved on from this to my IT Cosmetics Heavenly Skin brush. Now, this brush costs, I think, around $50, and this brush, the whole set, costs like under $15, so there is a huge price difference. And in terms of performance, along those three dimensions, so one on softness, this IT Cosmetics brush is a little bit more soft. It feels great against the skin. There's absolutely no prickly feeling at all, and this one maybe just an ever so slight prickly feeling. The density of this IT Cosmetics brush is way denser than the Real Techniques brush, and the shape is also bigger, so it makes it an easier, faster application of powder to the face. And finally, in terms of bristle stiffness, this one is a bit stiffer, and again, it just makes the way I apply all over powder to be really easy, because I just like to pat once and then dab, 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 and I'm done. No need to kind of go back in multiple times, one and done. So for me, I really love this brush. That being said, when it comes to value, this is really expensive, and I have here one of my super old brushes. This is like a cheapo kabuki brush from Target that I literally was like $6, I'm pretty sure. I don't even know what brand it is. But along those three dimensions, these two brushes are very, very similar, and this one costs about 10 times more. So I just, I do have to admit the IT Cosmetics brush is a little bit more soft, but other than that, these two are very, very similar, so you can absolutely find cheap brushes that are going to perform just as well as your expensive ones. But are you going to enjoy using it as much? That's where that extra $50 goes, I guess. So yeah, that is a personal choice, and in my case, I opted to get a more expensive one, and I do enjoy using it and love using it, so again, totally understand that that's probably irrational, but there is something to be said for how much you enjoy something. Moving along to blush, as I mentioned, this is also a good blush brush. Again, you can just have that targeted kind of apples of the cheek application of blush. If you like a more, specific blush application, this is not the right shape for you, but for the way I do it, this works great. The thing about this, though, compared to my new favorite one for blush, is that this IT Cosmetics brush, this one came as a part of a holiday set, so you can't buy this individually, and but I'm sure they always come back with them. The difference, though, in terms of how these apply is really in the density of the bristles. I don't know if you can see here, but this one is more dense, and this is a lot less dense, and also the flexibility of the bristles. So this, you don't have to apply much pressure, and the bristles are bending and they kind of flay out. This one, you have to apply a little bit more pressure, and the way that these bristles kind of flay out is more stiff. It kind of bends more in one direction rather than kind of spreading out. And as a result, when you are applying the blush, this one you need to be a lot more light-handed, and this one you can, doesn't really matter because it doesn't deposit nearly as much due to its density and the way the bristles splay out due to the flexibility. So again, from use, this is a little bit better, and these bristles, IT Cosmetics in general, the bristles are always super soft, so this is really comfortable to use. As a result, these days I really don't use this brush that much, even though it's a great little multitasking brush, and I still like to take it for travel because it's cheap and I don't care if I lose it or damage it or whatever. Next, when it comes to highlighting, here for me and the type of product that I use, which are generally very natural looking products, I am again not super specific about the type of brush because the stuff I use is natural. It doesn't matter if it gets a little bit all over the place. So this contour brush from the It Cosmetics, or sorry, Real Techniques base set works well for doing that. It can just nicely apply the highlight to the, you know, tops of the cheeks, to the tops of the foreheads here, wherever. And because the product I use is natural, I don't ever look streaky with using this brush. So here again, how you use your highlighter and what type of product you use for your highlighter is going to dictate what kind of brush you like. For some, this brush is probably going to be too stiff to be a good highlighter brush, and maybe the shape is going to be too big because you want a more precise application, but at least for me and the way I do my makeup, this one works great. Lastly, when it comes to contour, this is, I think, the area that I really have found a huge difference in how brushes perform, and what you really need to look for is going to be very specific. So for the longest time I was using this brush again. This is that Base Sets contour brush. I mean, it's called a contour brush. I figured it's good for use in the contour. I mean, it looks like it'll work great because it's a small shape and, you know, you feel like you can get a precise application of the product into the hollows of your cheek. However, I really just thought that I was not meant to use contour, or my face shape wasn't designed to do it, or whatever. I just couldn't do it. It always looked crappy when I used this brush to apply contour. It just looked muddy, streaky, like too much stuff, too much product was getting deposited, and I honestly wasn't sure what I was doing wrong. And it wasn't until I actually recently got this brush. This is the new Real Techniques powder blue brush. This is B02, that I discovered that actually a brush can make a humongous difference. So originally I got this brush thinking I would use it for powder, kind of to set the under eye or something like that, because it's smaller than my giant It Cosmetics brush. But as I was using it for that purpose, I found it to be really lackluster. It wasn't picking up very much product, and it wasn't depositing very much product, and I was just like, this brush kind of sucks. But I tried it out for contour, and lo and behold, this was like perfect. This is exactly what I needed. So just comparing this one again on those 3 dimensions, softness-wise, this brush is really soft. I have to say, this is like, this powder blue line is supposed to be like a synthetic blue squirrel. Whatever, I don't know if that's realistic to how blue squirrel feels, but this is truly very, very soft. In terms of density, this brush is also maybe just a little bit less dense than this guy here. But I think the main thing is in the flexibility of the bristles. This one is, I don't know, it's probably just hard to tell on camera, but these bristles are super flex, and these are just a lot more stiff. And as a result, when you are applying your contour powder, you barely have to do anything, and you don't get as much on your skin because these bristles don't pick as much up and they don't deposit as much as a result. But B, you barely have to do any blending because the way these bristles kind of go against your skin, the stiffness, the lack of stiffness, I should say, that these bristles have, and the softness that they have, it's able to kind of do a blend and make the application super diffuse with barely any effort. So I don't know, I think this has improved my cheek contour. Not that I do a lot of it to begin with, first of all, but in terms of a natural cheek contour, this has made a huge, huge difference. And I'm really glad that I have this now for that purpose. So in summary, whether you spend a little or a lot of money on brushes, I think you can get very similar results. You just have to be looking for those 3 things that I mentioned, which is, you know, how comfortable is it going to be to use? That's probably the softness of the bristle itself is probably the one area where spending a little bit more money gets you a softer bristle, but it's not going to be life-changing, to be honest. 2, though, is going to be the density of the brush, which again you can get at any price point. Just look for the right density for the application that you're looking for. And then 3 is going to be this flexible bristle point that I really undervalued previously, and now I'm like, it makes a huge difference. So those are the 3 things that I think you should keep in mind. One other thing I will mention is, you know, when I first started getting into brushes, I purchased like a bunch of sets, and truth be told, I'm never gonna buy a set again. Now that I know like what type of brush shapes I like and the type of brushes that I'm looking for and how I use them, I will only ever buy individual brushes unless there's a huge discount in buying a set. Because honestly, in all the sets that I have, I never use like a third of the brushes, if not more, and it's just kind of a waste. They just sit around collecting dust. So yeah, I think if you are starting out, it might be worthwhile to get a large set just to try out the different shapes and figure out what you like. Get something, you know, really inexpensive to do that, and once you are more familiar, then you can start upgrading one at a time to the pieces and the shapes and the particular functions that you need and are looking for in your makeup routine. Okay, that's all I wanted to say. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Let me know if you have any comments, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!
Say love me, leave me, let me be lonely. You won't believe me, but I love you only. I'd rather be lonely than happy with somebody else.